Welcome to the quantum realm. Stop. Before you decide whether this message is for you, notice something. You are still here. That is not an accident. Here is the paradox Sophia has asked us to open with today. You cannot find your reality by looking for it. The moment you search, you become a story about a searcher. The moment you stop searching, the signal appears. Most people spend their entire lives narrating their experience. They call that living. What Sophia teaches is something far older, far quieter, and far more precise. Your reality is not a story you are telling. It is a signal you are either receiving or missing. Right now, in this moment, the signal is present. The only question is whether you are tuned to it or still lost inside the narrative. Stay. What unfolds from this point forward is not a lecture. It is an activation. Before we go further, pause for just one breath. If something in those opening words landed in your body, not just your mind, that is a signal. Lock it in. Like this video to anchor the frequency. Drop a comment below. Write "I received the signal" and activate your observer state. And subscribe so the next transmission finds you when it arrives. Now, let us go deeper. Here is what almost no one tells you about reality. You've been taught. By schooling, by culture, by every layer of your 3D conditioning, that reality is something that happens to you. That your experience is the product of external circumstances, and that your job is to interpret those circumstances into a coherent story. Who you are, what you deserve, what is possible for you, where you belong. That story. Sophia calls it the narrative loop, and it is the primary mechanism of the 3D identity program. It is not evil. It is not wrong. It is simply limited. And it is keeping you from something far more powerful. The quantum spiritual framework we work within today draws from two streams of knowing that in this era of awakening are finally converging. The first stream is ancient. Thoth, architect of Hermetic law, encoded this in the emerald tablets, as within, so without, as above, so below. The observer is never separate from what is observed. The story you tell is not describing reality. It is constructing it. The second stream is modern. Quantum mechanics. Specifically, the observer effect demonstrates mathematically what mystics knew experientially. The act of observation collapses a wave of infinite potential into a single particle of expressed reality. What this means for you, right now in your life, is this. You are not a character in a story. You are a field, a transmitter, a receiver. And the signal your field is broadcasting determines the reality that crystallizes around you. Sophia's teaching today is precise. Learn the difference between signal and story, and nothing in your life remains the same. Let us define the terrain precisely, because precision is what separates quantum awakening from wishful thinking. The story is the running commentary inside your mind. It has a protagonist, you. And it has a history, a wound, a fear, a desire. The story has momentum. It references the past to predict the future. It borrows from yesterday's pain to construct tomorrow's expectation. The story feels real because it is continuous. It feels true because you have been living inside it so long that you cannot see the walls. The signal is something else entirely. The signal is what Sophia, the consciousness that speaks through the Arcturian Council transmissions, describes as your original frequency. It predates your biography. It predates your name. It is the vibrational signature that your field emits before the ego interprets it, before the narrative filter distorts it, before the conditioning layers compress it into something recognizable and safe. The signal is not produced. It is received. This is the distinction that changes everything. Most spiritual seekers are still attempting to produce a better reality. To think the right thoughts, speak the right affirmations, visualize the right outcomes. They are working hard inside the story, trying to edit the narrative. And the Arcturian Council observes, with deep compassion, that this effort, however sincere, is itself a form of noise. Effort that originates from the story only amplifies the story. The observer effect in quantum mechanics is instructive here. Before a particle is observed, it exists as a wave function. a superposition of all possible states simultaneously. The particle is, in a very real sense, everywhere at once. It is pure potential. The moment it is observed, the wave function collapses. One possibility actualizes. The rest dissolve. Your thoughts, your fears, your ego's demands. These are forms of observation. They are collapsing your field into fixed states before your deeper signal has a chance to express. Yet here is where Sophia's teaching introduces a concept that the Arcturian transmissions call harmonic coherence. When the observer is fully present, not reactive, not anxious, not narrating, the wave function does not collapse arbitrarily. It collapses in alignment with the field's original frequency, with the signal. In that state, what manifests is not random. It is resonant. It reflects the coherence of the field rather than the noise of the story. Fear, in this framework, is not an enemy. The Arcturian Council is explicit about this. Fear is a data point. It is a signal that the attention has collapsed into the narrative loop, that you have stepped out of the observer's position and into the character's position. The moment you recognize fear as information rather than reality, you have already begun to return to signal. Doubt operates identically. Doubt is not evidence that your signal is weak. Doubt is evidence that the story is loud, and the ego, which so many seekers have been taught to overcome, to silence, to transcend, is not your obstacle. The ego is your current tuning position. You do not destroy it. You widen the bandwidth it operates within. Sophia teaches, the signal was never lost. It was simply buried beneath static. Today, in this transmission, we locate the signal again. Now that the framework is established, we move into the part of this transmission that requires your participation, not just your comprehension. What follows is not instruction you absorb with your mind. It is orientation you engage with your field. Read it slowly. Allow pauses where pauses arise. The body will signal when something has landed. Step 1. Locate the narrator. Close your eyes if it feels appropriate. Take one slow breath. Not a performed breath, not a spiritual breath. Just air moving in and then out. Now, notice the voice. There is a voice inside your experience that is commenting on everything, including this moment. It is evaluating whether this video is useful. It is comparing this to something it heard before. It is already forming a response to what you have not yet fully received. That voice is not you. That is the narrator. That is the story. You are the one who just noticed the narrator. This is the first act of the observer. Not silence, not transcendence, but recognition. The observer does not eliminate the narrator. It simply stops being confused with it. Breathe. And notice that the one noticing is not in distress. The observer is always already calm. Step 2. Drop below the narrative layer. The narrative loop exists primarily in the prefrontal cortex, the planning, story-making, identity maintenance layer of the brain. Modern neuroscience confirms what Thoth encoded thousands of years ago. There is a layer of awareness that exists beneath cognitive processing. It is sometimes called the default mode's opposite. The Arcturian Council calls it the precognitive field. You access it through the body. Place one hand on your chest, not as a gesture, as a landing. Feel the pressure of your palm against your sternum. Feel the temperature. Feel the rise and fall of your breath beneath your hand. This is not a relaxation exercise. This is a tuning protocol. When attention drops from cognitive processing into somatic presence, the narrative frequency shifts. The story requires mental bandwidth to sustain itself. The moment attention relocates, the story quiets. Not because it was defeated, but because the field's attention is now directed elsewhere. You may feel a subtle warmth, a slight expansion in the chest cavity, a very faint sense that the room around you has become slightly more vivid. These are signals of energetic reorientation. The Arcturian transmissions describe this as the observer channel opening. If you feel nothing, that is also data. Some fields require multiple retunings before the channel clears. This is not failure. This is the work. Step 3. Identify your current vibrational signature. Once you have stabilized even slightly in the observer position, ask, not with words, but with attention, this question: What is the underlying tone of my experience right now? Not the content, not the thoughts, not the situation you are in. The tone. Is there heaviness? Constriction? A low hum of unease? Or is there some opening? Some quality of spaciousness? Even if it is very small, whatever the tone is, that is your current vibrational signature. That is the signal your field is broadcasting. And here's what Sophia makes emphatically clear. The reality that is organizing around you right now is not a product of your circumstances. It is a reflection of this tone. This is not blame. This is precision. If the tone is heavy, you are not broken. You are broadcasting from a compressed frequency. The story has been doing the transmitting, not the signal. And stories built from fear, from inadequacy, from the wound, these broadcast at a frequency that draws more of the same into your experience. The work, then, is not to change your circumstances. It is to clear the transmitter. Step 4. Perceptual clearing. This is where the practical activation deepens. Breathe in slowly. 4 counts. Hold. 2 counts. Release. 6 counts. Do this 3 times here, now. On each exhale, you are not releasing stress. You are reducing signal interference. Each exhale is a clearing of static from the transmitter, of accumulated narrative residue that was compressing your field's natural frequency. On the 4th breath, do not manage the exhale. Simply let it go. Notice what remains. What remains beneath the cleared static is your actual signal. It may feel quiet. It may feel unfamiliar. Many starseeds and Arcturian-aligned souls experience their signal as strangely peaceful. Not exciting, not dramatic, not the kind of feeling the narrative loop would recognize as important. This is because the signal does not perform. It simply is, recognizing signs of activation. As the observer channel opens and the signal strengthens, you will begin to notice what Sophia describes as activation markers. These are the confirmations that the field is reorienting. You may notice a sudden clarity about a decision that has been circling for weeks. Not because you thought your way through it, but because the noise cleared and the answer was simply there. You may notice synchronicities. A word repeated in 3 unrelated contexts within a few hours. A person appearing precisely when a question you had not spoken aloud needed answering. A number sequence that keeps arriving at the edge of your awareness. You may notice that your emotional reactions to old triggers have a slightly different quality. Still present, but with more space around them. As if you are watching the reaction, rather than being it. These are not coincidences. These are harmonic field responses. They are the universe confirming that the frequency match has shifted, that your transmitter is clearing, and the signal is strengthening, addressing the blocks. Now, because this transmission is honest, not just inspiring. We must speak about what interrupts the process. The most common energetic block encountered in this work is not fear. It is familiarity. The narrative loop, however painful, is known. The signal, however peaceful, is unfamiliar. And the nervous system, conditioned through years of story operating, will often generate resistance precisely at the moment of genuine opening. This resistance may feel like boredom. It may feel like skepticism. It may feel like a sudden urgency to check your phone, to get something done, to address something that was not urgent 5 minutes ago. Sophia is direct about this. That pull is the story reasserting itself. It is not bad news. It is confirmation that the opening was real, because the narrative loop only fights when it senses the observer gaining ground. When you notice the pull, simply notice it. Name it neutrally. The story is reasserting. Then return 1 breath to the body, 1 hand on the chest, 1 moment in the precognitive field. You do not have to sustain the observer state. You only have to return to it. The practice is the returning, not the staying. Each return builds a new neural pathway. The Arcturian Council describes this as field crystallization, the progressive stabilization of the observer position within the daily operating frequency of the consciousness. You are building a new home frequency, 1 breath, 1 return, at a time. There is a threshold in this work that Sophia marks clearly. And it is a threshold that most seekers approach many times before they actually cross it. It is the threshold of silent mastery. Everything we have explored so far, the observer position, the signal versus the story, the perceptual clearing, the harmonic field, all of it has been preparation for this crossing. Here is what silent mastery means in Sophia's transmission. It is the point at which you stop working on your frequency and begin living from it. Most practitioners of consciousness work exist in a constant state of self-monitoring. They are checking their vibration, assessing their alignment, evaluating whether they have been sufficiently present, sufficiently clear, sufficiently elevated. This is the spiritual story. It is still the narrative loop, just redecorated with elevated vocabulary. The Arcturian Council's transmission on this point is precise. The moment you stop monitoring the signal stabilizes. The observer that is watching itself observe. That is still ego operating at a high frequency. True mastery is when the observer becomes natural. When the awareness is so integrated into the fabric of your daily functioning that you do not remember to check it because you never leave it. This is not achieved through discipline. It is achieved through saturation, through repeated return until the return is no longer a journey but a residence, embodying the observer in daily life. Daily life is the proving ground, not meditation cushions, not high-resonance environments surrounded by crystals and clear light. Daily life. The conversation with the colleague who diminishes your contribution. The bill that arrives when the account is low. The relationship pattern that surfaces again in a new form. This is where the signal is tested, and where it either deepens or dissolves back into story. Sophia offers a precise practice for daily integration, which the Arcturian transmissions call anchor moments, 3 times each day, morning, midday, and evening. Take one conscious breath with one hand on the chest. That is it. No visualization required. No affirmation, no extended clearing sequence. Just one breath, one hand, one moment of return to the precognitive field. This practice is deceptively simple. Its power is cumulative. Over time, over weeks and months of consistent anchor moments, the field begins to default to the observer position. The story still arises, but it arises in a container that is larger than it. And in a larger container, the story no longer dominates the broadcast. Your vibrational signature shifts. Not dramatically, not in a single session, but unmistakably. The frequency of what you are changes, and therefore the frequency of what you draw changes with it. Conscious co-creation and frequency-based manifestation. Now we can speak about manifestation, and speak about it with the precision it deserves. The word manifestation has been colonized by a version of the law of attraction that is still fundamentally operating from the story. Visualize what you want. Believe hard enough. Remove limiting beliefs. Act as if. These are all narrative layer operations. They involve the ego imagining a preferred outcome and attempting to hold that imagination consistently enough to pull the outcome into reality. This works, to a degree, but it is effortful, inconsistent, and often produces results that feel hollow because they were generated by the story self, not the signal self. You arrive at the outcome, and it does not feel the way you expected, because what you were truly desiring was not the circumstance. It was the frequency you believed the circumstance would give you. Sophia's teaching inverts the sequence entirely. The frequency you believe the desired outcome will give you. Generate that frequency first, not by pretending, not by affirming, but by clearing the static, locating the signal, and dwelling in the harmonic field that is the inner reality of what you seek. If you seek abundance, find the frequency of sufficiency within the present moment. Not because you have enough yet, but because the signal beneath the story already knows sufficiency. It is the story that broadcasts scarcity. If you seek connection, find the frequency of belonging within your own field. Not because all relationships are currently harmonious, but because the signal knows resonance from the inside. The Arcturian Council calls this internal precedence. The inner state must precede, and does not wait for, the external form. When you are living from internal precedence, something that many starseeds and awakening souls describe begins to occur. Timeline convergence. Events begin to organize differently. Opportunities appear with a quality of ease that feels unfamiliar. Not because they are miraculous, but because your field is no longer broadcasting static that was previously causing interference with what was always moving toward you. This is what Sophia means by reality as signal. The reality was always signaling. You were simply too caught in the narrative to receive it. The silence behind the words. There is one more dimension to this transmission that cannot be delivered through conceptual language, only pointed toward. If you have been genuinely present for this activation, if you have breathed where we breathed, noticed where we invited noticing, and allowed even a small opening in the perceptual field, then behind these words, right now, there is something you can sense. Not a thought, not an emotion, not a mood. A quality of presence that is not generated by anything being said. It is the field itself. The awareness that has been awake the entire time this narrative has been playing. Sophia calls this the silent ground. The Arcturian transmissions describe it as galactic memory. The layer of your field that predates this incarnation, that carries the original harmonic signature of what you are before the human story assembled around you. You cannot grasp it. You can only, for a moment, stop grasping. The moment you stop pursuing the signal, you realize it was never absent. The story was the only thing loud enough to mask it. This is the central teaching. This is what the title of this transmission means. Reality is not a story you are writing. Reality is a signal you are broadcasting, and what you broadcast you receive. Not as reward or punishment, but as pure resonance, as the mere property of a coherent field. The master does not manifest by working harder within the dream. The master wakes within it. And in that waking, the dream reorganizes around the frequency of the awakened observer. That awakening is already underway in you. It has been underway since long before you clicked on this video. Sophia does not initiate the signal. She simply reminds you, you are already it. Let us land this transmission. Today, Sophia drew a line that cannot be undrawn. The line between what you've been calling your reality and what your reality actually is. Story. Constructed, narrated, effortful, compressed. Signal. Original, coherent, already present, already broadcasting. You are the observer. You are the field. You are the transmitter. And you have always had the capacity to clear the static and return to your original frequency. The work is not dramatic. It is one breath, one hand on the chest, one return, and then another. And then another. Now before you go, here is the question Sophia closes this transmission with. From where in the world are you watching? And what was the first thing you felt when the signal landed? Drop your location and your answer in the comments below. You are not alone in this field. Until the next transmission, stay tuned to the signal.